Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the podcast dedicated to the commercial food equipment repair industry. My name is Pat Finley. I'm a lead master certified technician at General Parts Group and a certified Sufesta trainer. My goal is to shine a light on what I believe to be one of the most interesting and rewarding industries a field service technician can work in. I love the work I do, and I'm glad you're here listening to this podcast. In today's episode, I talk with Chris Crane. Chris is a fiber splicer or an outside plant technician. What's up, everybody? Tonight I've got a very special guest on. Me and Chris have gone back probably 5 or 6 years now. Known each other
At
through
least that.
known each other through a hobby that I used to partake in. I still don't mind it. I just don't have the time to be involved in it right now. But Chris is a fiber technician. He lives in South Central Indiana and he takes care of fiber internet. So I will let him explain exactly what he does because I've tried to say his title and his role 8 million times today and I can't do it. So what's up, Chris?
Well, that would involve me even knowing my role is, one day we might be splicing fiber. One day we might be digging a trench and running fiber. One day we might be getting called out on an outage. We deal with everything pretty much from where the internet originates in our office to where it lands at the side of the house. That's kind of our baby. We take care of it. All the equipment in the cabinets, switches, all that stuff, batteries. We do all that, the DC power stuff. And we're pretty much the backbone of our network.
That's cool. You've been bragging about your internet quality over mine for years, and I finally got fiber, and I'm absolutely in love with it, man. It's been a battle for my little small town, and it's finally here. And uh, I'm supposed to be getting up to a gig. I think I'm around 700 something right now. They're still having some issues they're trying to work out, but I will take that every single day.
Yeah, it's one of them things, people don't realize like what you need the internet for. Right now, the company I'm at, we can offer 2.5 gig download speed. And that's
Holy
just crazy to
smokes!
think. When I started in this industry back in 2004, 2005, I'd have people begging me to bump them up from 1.5 to 3 megs whenever I was doing copper and DSL. And it's like our bottom package now is 100 megs. And it's just crazy in that time frame where we went, and gig to the house. Like I never thought we'd see the light of day when we would have gig to the house. And, the area where we serve, we're rural. Probably 50% of the people we serve don't even have cell phone coverage in their house. You got to walk outside just to send a text or do something on the internet. And, it's crazy to think that they've got 2.5 gig right at their front door and, they're 30 miles from the closest town. And that's why we're doing it though. And, nobody was going to serve them people. So, we had to.
Yeah, that's the way it was where we were at. The big companies wouldn't come in. We're a small town of like 1,600 people, and we had some smaller cable companies here and telephone companies, and it was like DSL, and they had cable, and it wasn't very good because our infrastructure sold. But like the bigger nationwide companies wouldn't come in because there wasn't enough return on investment for them. If they're not going to get the dollars, they're not going to, there's no reason for them to come in. And I get that, but I mean, it sucks for people like us. And finally, the cable provider in the area decided to step up and bring in fiber, and dude, it's been amazing. And like you said, there's places in town here, my little town, where you don't have cell signal, and
Mm-hmm.
you're counting on phones, and our phone system was always down. Our infrastructure is terrible in this little town, and
Yeah, and the crazy thing was is before we started this project back in 2017, 2018, whenever we started doing it, like we went to all those major companies. We went to the Comcast, we went to the Smithvilles, the AT&Ts, the Frontiers, the Verizons, and we made them the offer. Hey, like we'll let you be on our poles 10 years, no taxes, just we won't charge those attachment fees, but it's all or nothing. You got to serve all our members, or you're not serving none of them. And none of them wanted anything to do with it because there was just no money for them. They want where they can run a mile of fiber and pick up 200 houses. We might run a mile of fiber and pick up 2 houses.
if one, so yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
so that's what prompted them to do it. And who would have knew then 2017 2018 when we were doing this that COVID was going to be a thing in 2020, and all these people working from home and school from home, like how would these people in our rural community have done it? And we even partnered up with fire departments, businesses, any of them that had our service and said, hey, we'll give you an access point. We won't charge you for it, but we're going to open your network up and let your community members come to it if they need it for homework or for school. And, we had a lot of churches and volunteer fire departments that, yeah, we'll step up. We'll give an open network and let them use it. And, even at our office, we opened our network up and, you could pull out in the parking lot and do homework or do schoolwork if you needed to. And it's just crazy to think what would have been if we hadn't have done it for our community. Like, where would they have been?
That's really awesome. Yeah, that's really cool that you guys done that. I mean, it just shows that you guys are a rural area, but yet you do care about the end users. It's not all about the money. It's about quality of life.
It truly isn't about the money. It's these people were underserved for all these years, and we have
I get it.
Rose Acres Farms, like one of the biggest egg producers probably worldwide. Their corporate office is in that area we serve. They actually moved their corporate office 5 or 10 years ago. And it had been longer than that, probably about 10 years ago, to a town where they could get fiber internet, and now they have better internet available to them where they were at. And and where they're at, they have internet, but it's $3,000 a month for 100 meg service. Like, our commercial rate for 100 meg, I think it's $200 a month. So, them companies, they take advantage of that. They can charge that $2-3 grand a month because what else are you going to do?
Yeah, that's crazy. So my brother, he lives out in the country, and he could have cable. The major cable provider for the state of Indiana they were on his road, but his house is a quarter mile off the road, and they wouldn't run a line. He was like, I'll put it in myself. They're like, no, we won't let you do it. They wanted him to pay to have someone trench it in, and then every 100 foot he had to put a pedestal. It was going to cost him like 25 grand. So his neighbor across the street was his friend. So he had it. The guy had a house, was remodeling it. So he had internet ran to the house and was beaming it from his porch to his porch. And eventually he figured out that he could sign up for business class because he worked from home, and they'd actually run it all the way back to his house for free. And he's had to pay for like 2 years of business class. So he's paying off the nose for business class for 2 years. But once that 2 years is up, he can drop it and just go back to regular residential, and
cancel the service and put it in his wife's name the next day as residential and roll with it. But I mean, yeah. I had that too. I had members that showed me invoices from Comcast or Frontier, and it was 45 grand to have them run cable to their house. And most average people, they can't do that,
No.
And it ain't even like it's a $45,000 credit. It'll roll off your bill every month. I mean, it's $45,000, and you're going to pay $100 a month or whatever they charge for the service fee.
That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. They know these people want the service, and they take advantage of it, I think.
And in some cases, it's not even a want; it's a need. Like, I've put service in for a lady. She didn't even care about the internet. She needed it because she had a medical condition, and she had this pillow she laid on, and it beamed whatever information from inside of her to the hospital. And she said without it, she would have to go, I think it was an hour to the closest hospital for them to run those tests. But we put the internet in just for that. She didn't care about any other stuff, the streaming, the email, none of that stuff. She medically needed it. We've had others too where we've put it in, and I got there to hook up the service, and it's hey, whatever you do, don't say you're putting the internet in. And it's like, well, what the hell am I doing here? Like, that's what I'm doing. And, well, no, you can't say you're putting the internet in. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here in your driveway. And it's, well, if Granny knows you're putting the internet in, she's not gonna let you in the house. And I'm still like, okay, like, well, still. And they were having the internet put in because she had dementia, and they wanted to be able to put cameras up to be able to keep an eye on her and keep her in her own house. So, stuff like that. Yeah. Another one, they pay DirecTV for a TV service, $200 a month. Well, they can put our internet in for $50 a month, pay $50 a month for YouTube TV, and save money. And these older people, they can't. They got to save as much money as they can. They're on a fixed income, and now with the price of eggs and the price of milk, like, they got to cut back wherever they can. And people think of it as just the internet of Facebook and TikTok, but I mean, there's really, that's just a small aspect of it.
Yeah, that's nuts. So you do installs, like you said you do installs and service work. So I've seen some of your stuff on Snapchat where you've got like bullet holes in lines and people hitting poles and all kinds of crazy stuff. So a normal day, you're normally just doing installs and stuff at houses. So
normal day, Usually we're doing all the outside plant stuff. Like right now, one of the towns south of our service footprint, they're actually not even in our service footprint, but they seen how good our service was. They paid the money to have us run fiber to all their municipal buildings. So that's what we're doing right now. We had our contractor; they did all their boring and placing of the fiber. We're running the drops to the businesses inside. We did City Hall today. I think if we don't get the storms they're calling for, I think we're going to do the fire department tomorrow. But yeah, we're doing all their municipal buildings. I think it's a dozen of them that we're hooking up. Other than that, we're just available. Like tree falls through a fiber line, car wreck. It's one of the things. If it can happen, man, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand that, man.
low hanging lines. I mean, we've got 12,000 subscribers, so I mean, we've got a lot of fiber in the air and in the ground out there. Springtime, we're getting ready to start back up wasp season. They love to build nests in our fiber enclosures, chew on that fiber. It's the craziest thing I ever seen. We've got 2 fibers in most of our nids, a blue and an orange one. We usually run the service on the blue one. They'll sit there and they'll gnaw on that till they chew that fiber in half. And we thought it was a color thing. Is it because it's blue? So we started moving them to the orange. Somehow they can detect that laser beam running through that fiber. They'll sit there and gnaw on that orange one until it's gnawed in half too. But it's just one of the things of nature's. But yeah, so that's when we start that. People start doing their digging, their construction stuff. Nobody calls 811. It's always an afterthought.
So when they did my fiber, like I was like one of the last roads in town to get it, because the poles going down the alley were too low, so they had to go through and put all new poles in.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had to come back and raise all the utility lines up, and then the fiber goes on the bottom. So we were one of the last ones to get it, dude. Everyone else was talking about, oh, fiber's great. And I was so jealous and so mad. And the day I seen them, raising the utility lines, and the fiber came in the next couple of days, I was freaking out. I was like, put me on the list. I don't care what it cost. I was like, I want the highest package. I was like, because your highest package is still cheaper than what I'm paying for 10 megs on a good day. So it's truly been a great thing. I mean, I play video games. I've got kids that stream video games. I got a wife that's always on Netflix. I mean, it's just a normal modern day house where everybody's doing something on the internet, and just videos buffering and everything else. Just it's great to finally have good stable internet.
Yeah, and it's crazy. You'll pull up an account on a trouble ticket. You'll roll out there, and you'll look, and they'll have 120 devices connected to the router. And most normal people are like, what? No, 120 devices, but you think a 4-bedroom house, you got 4 TVs. Everybody in the house is going to have a phone. Most of them are going to have a watch, a tablet. The Alexas, the Googles, all that stuff, and it's just crazy all the stuff that relies on that internet to function.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird, crazy world. When I was a kid, we had dial up, and you get into chat rooms and talk to people and stuff, and you get disconnected, and then you hear that sound in the background trying to reconnect. And to think where it's gone in the last 25 years, it's absolutely crazy. It's like, what's going to happen in the next 25 years?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, when I got in this in 05, 04, 05, like I never thought in my lifetime I would see, residential 1 gig service, who would have thought that? Like that would have been reserved for the elitist. And, now anybody that wants to pay $100 a month, we'll give them a gig internet. I mean, right now, 8 o'clock at night, I bet if I logged in and looked, I bet even our network, 11, 12,000 people, I bet we're moving 50, 60 gigs of bandwidth right now. That's a ton of bandwidth.
That's absolutely crazy. It's nuts, man. It's cool, but it's weird. It's like, I don't understand how fiber works. I know it's a laser, but it's like, how does
the
that laser
it works over wavelengths. It's just a laser. We've got multiplexers where you can put, I think it's 99 100 gig links over different wavelengths, and it just used different wavelengths to transmit that. I think it's different color lasers is how that works, but that's crazy to think. A piece of glass, I mean, the size of human hair can transmit that much bandwidth. I had Kobe over here a couple of weeks ago. I had some buffer tube, and some raw fiber, and I pulled it out, and he's seen it, and it was like the size of his hair, and he was like, "Oh, that's crazy! Like that, my internet runs to it because he's got our service." And I'm like, "Buddy, like
Mhm.
I can run our whole network through that single piece of glass, like all 12,000 people."
Yeah, I follow some like fiber cartels, some other people on
Yep, he's a good one.
TikTok.
He's a really good one.
And dude, watching them, they're cutting they're cutting the sheath off, and they're cleaning it, and they're drying it, and they're doing. I'm like, I can't even see what he's doing. I'm like, you can't even see in the video what he's working with, and he'll show it up close to the camera, and it's just like you said, it's just a hair. And you're like, oh,
Yeah,
this is dirty. I can't use this. I'm like, how can you tell a hair is dirty, dude?
yeah. The guy I work with, he's a great guy. He's been splicing for a while, and he's stupid fast. Like watching him splice like a 12 fiber, like a buffer tube, like it's insane. Like how fast he'll fly through that. And we went up to Hoosier Energy a couple weeks ago because they're getting ready to do fiber up in the static line, up in transmission lines. Any new line rebuilds they do now, they run it's called a OPGW, optical ground wire, but it's got that conductor, and inside of it, you've got to actually take a sawzall or die grinder and cut that outer sheath off. And then inside of it, it's another aluminum tube like a brake line. You strip it back, and there's 192 fibers inside that.
See,
Um,
I heard
the
about that.
their
Go ahead.
their foreman, he's been doing it for a while. He said they did it up at the Greensburg Honda plant. He said that static wire's been through 2 tornadoes. It's got ripped down, but they just put it back up. Like it's not broke, it's not ripped in two,
Just because it's
nothing.
protected by
Yeah,
the grounding.
because I mean,
So
what's going to get into it short of a tornado or a plane? I mean, nothing's going to get into that.
yeah, I heard about that years ago. About power companies were going to be getting into providing the internet and everything else. So like, it's our poles. They own most of the poles. They and I always thought that was like, there's no way they can do it. But after you explain that, I mean, it's real easy for them to do at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we own the poles. I mean, we're the electric company. We do have some of our fiber on Duke poles. I mean, like transmission poles and stuff like that. But I mean, most of the poles we own. So
Mhm.
we have an issue with it. We walk over down the hall to Brian or Derek, our line superintendents, and hey, we got this pole broke, or we need this changed out. They send a crew and take care of it. Whereas right now, I think we're on month 4 or 5 waiting to get permission from Duke just to put the fiber for that town we're building, just to run up 5 poles because our contractor couldn't bore under the road because of some culvert in there. He couldn't get deep enough to get underneath it. But I mean, like I said, we've been waiting months just to get permission to even just hanging on their poles. And
That's
yeah, I would have
crazy.
never believed whenever I got into this industry that a power company would be running fiber to all the rural America. But I mean, we're not the only ones. You got Orange County, you got Southeastern, you got SCI, Tidmont up there, RP and them up in Lafayette, they're
Yep.
doing it.
Yep.
There's one up north, they're doing it. Is yours a power company doing yours too?
No, it's a cable company, and they started another division called Fiberhawk. So they service some small rural towns just up here in north central Indiana, and it's kind of growing. But no, they had a cable. It was Swayze Communications. They had cable TV and cable internet, and it wasn't very good just because the infrastructure was so old. But they switched over to fiber. They quit offering the cable internet, and they just putting fiber in all their towns. And
Yeah, and I fully believe, if you're a company today and you're not putting fiber in the ground as your means of communication, especially if you're a communication company, you won't be around in 15 years. I mean, it's just not, you're not.
yeah, it's fiber is just, it blows my mind. I'm so fascinated. You watch those guys doing those hubs, and it's like okay, why do they do the loops? Okay, they can't kink the fiber, so it's got to be a loop and that kind of stuff. I guess, is that why you
Yeah,
can't kink
yeah,
it?
yeah. It's one of the things, and my partner he said it. He said, it's stronger than you think it is, but it's not as strong as you want. You can take
Mhm.
that fiber, you can take it and you can stretch it straight line, tight as you can. I mean, a guy like me or you, we can't break it in half if you pull it straight. But you take it and you roll it in a circle and pull it, pops it right in two.
That's
It's just
crazy.
crazy. Even splicing it, like you get outside, cold day, like it's super fragile. You got to be careful when you're stripping that fiber because you'll pop the glass. Really, really cold days like we had this winter, you got to sit there and take it and run that fiber right there in your hand just to get it warmed up enough to where you can hopefully peel that coating off and cleave it and splice it back together without breaking it. But yeah, it's stronger than you think, but it's not as strong as you want. You got to keep them bend radiuses in check because You bend it a hard 90, it's probably done.
That's crazy. Yeah, there's like one guy had like a scope or something. He was like, I don't know what he was doing. He was like testing it. Had like a little scope,
So
and I was like,
the connector in where you plug it in, like it
yeah,
sounds crazy. You tell somebody like, because we had some routers you could actually unplug the fiber on. It wasn't in kind of a sealed enclosure. It's just where members could just grab it and unplug it. And like, oh yeah, I unplugged it and moved it in my entertainment center. Like, well, you've got it dirty. No, I was real careful. Like, no, just taking it and seriously touching the palm of your hand or the back of your hand and the oils from it, it'll get on there and it's enough. It'll scatter that light to where it'll be a degradation of service.
that's crazy, man. So do you have to do? Do you do many stuff? Do you do any stuff like people's houses on that end? Like
Not
do you?
anymore. With taking that promotion several months back, that moved me from more the inside to the outside.
Sweet.
That's where I wanted to be eventually anyway. But
Mhm.
when I hired on, I was one of one installer, and then we hired Aaron the same day. But Aaron, he was a splicer. He hadn't done installs before, so kind of had to show him the ropes. And it was kind of one of them things that, I don't plan on leaving this company. I plan on being here for the rest of my career. So I'm not going to be selfish. When
Mhm.
Aaron left and we had that new splicer position opened up, like I didn't even apply for it. And, it was, I don't want to be selfish. Like, yeah, I want that. I want to do that, but I don't want to sabotage us. Like we're still doing installs. Like I'm more valuable there than I'm going to be learning to splice, learning the outside plant. And, there'll be a time for it. And thankfully a spot opened up and moved over. So yeah, I
Sweet.
still do installs from time to time. I'm still on call. Uh, Technically, I mean, being outside plant, you're always on call. Like
Mhm.
you're never not on call, but every 5 weeks we have to be to where like, we have to go in people's houses if they have trouble or that sort of stuff. So yeah, I still get to go in the houses from time to time.
I do not envy you guys having to go to people's houses. I mean, I'm sure you see cool houses and you see
Yeah.
what the hell houses, house still standing houses. So
Yeah, that's what I always say. I hate our service is so reliable because some of the members we meet, they're great people like you, like me. Like you just want to sit and talk to them all day if you could, but I put their service in, I might not ever be back because it's never going to break. And then others, once is enough. I hate the fact that they have our service and we might have to go back to it just because the houses are so bad. But yeah,
uh, to each his own, I guess. Everyone's
yeah.
always like, "Oh, you want to do residential?" I'm like, "No, like, I make a lot doing what I'm doing. I don't need to, I don't want to go to someone's house and fix their fridge." I always have family members or friends like, "Hey, my fridge is broke." I'm like, "I don't do residential. Call somebody else." Sorry.
Yeah, and you always get the sweet old grandma, like, oh, I'm sorry, the
Hmm.
house is a mess, and you walk in and it's like immaculate, like looks like she just swept the carpet and everything. And then you get other people, they bring you in and there's 3-week-old pizza sitting on the counter and dishes ain't been done in a month, and they got
Smells like
passed through
cat
the house, and,
box.
and they don't even think twice about it. We've got guys who go in the house and they've got pigs in the house or goats or
Oh God.
I had a house that had a pet raccoon, like whatever, to each their own, but
The
yeah, I
pet
always I
raccoon.
always say I'm there to put your internet in. I'm not there to judge your lifestyle.
No,
Let's
do
just
my
get it
job.
in
Get me
and
the
get
hell
it.
out of here.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen it in restaurants. I've seen horrible places. I mean, absolutely. Like, how are you still open? How does your Board of Health rating say A on the door? I'm like,
yeah,
there's no freaking way. I'm like, I want to call the Board of Health when I leave and be like, how did you give them an A? Did you like tell them you were coming, or were they closed and you just they gave you $100? You gave them a
yeah.
sticker or what?
Drive
How
by
did?
inspection or what?
Oh, man, dude, it's. I mean, and I tell people are like, oh, McDonald's is dirty and nasty. I'm like, can you see the kitchen? Yeah, I was like, you're safe. If you can see the kitchen, it's clean. I was like, just because you pay $100 per person for a meal doesn't mean that restaurant's any cleaner than anywhere else. I'm telling you, some of the nastiest places I've been in have been the most expensive places to eat in. It's
Yeah, there was
amazing.
I worked in Buffalo Louie's right before I left the phone company, and I'll never eat there after going in there. Like never, never. It was terrible.
My son's one of my apprentices, man, and here's all kinds of places he won't eat at anymore. Like he's walked in and like I can see the look on his face, like he wants to puke. He's like, I've ate here, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, you'll run into this a lot. You'll get over it eventually.
Yeah, I've learned that, after some of the nasty houses, like, they don't even phase me anymore. I'll get a new guy with me or somebody that's never been really doing installs and stuff, and they'll go in a house and, like, they'll go out and, dry heaving from how nasty the house is. I'm like, how does that not phase you? And it's like, I've done it for so long, like, it just doesn't phase me anymore.
Yeah, the only thing that gets me is like when you carry the smell. I don't know if it's in your clothes or like in your
Hmm.
nostril. Like some of the things I work on, you carry that smell all day. It ruins my mood because it's like it never fails. That calls the first one of the day, and
Yep.
I smell
It
like it
always,
the rest
always,
of the
every
day.
time.
I smell like it the rest of the day. I'll change my pants, I'll change my shirt, and I still smell. I'm like, is it just like baked into my skin or what? It just
I, I,
so
I totally
nasty.
get that. I could smell my first house at the end of the day when I get in my vehicle to go home, and it's just terrible.
So what's some of the craziest stuff you've seen on a service call, like an outage or whatever?
Probably one of the recently crazy ones is one of them gunshot damage I sent to you.
Was that
It's
an
actually,
An
yeah, it was
Amish barn
Amish.
behind it? That's what I
Yeah,
thought. I was like, that's gotta be an Amish barn in the
I
background of
wanted
that
to walk
picture.
over there and tell them if they kept shooting the fiber, the worldly internet was going to leak out pornographic material all over the land, and get them to stop. But I think what it
Uh,
is people are just bored and shooting birds or squirrels off the fiber, and they miss and they hit it. Um,
yeah, because they couldn't do that to save their life. I
no,
guarantee it.
you'd never be able to just purposely try to shoot the fiber and hit it. You'd shoot and miss, but you shoot the
I mean,
squirrel on top, you're going to miss.
it's like the size of a dime, ain't it? Roughly.
Uh, that one I sent you, the Amish house, it was probably about the size of your thumb.
So it's a good size one, but still,
Yeah.
he's just shooting. Yeah, like you say, he's probably shooting a bird. And he just caught the line instead. So
Yeah, we're
that's
getting
nuts.
more and more of them. I mean, to the point that we had to get signs made in like some of the areas, like opening day of dove season. I think we had 2 fibers shot that. Well, that week we had 3 fibers shot that week, and
Oh no.
those are always. Thankfully, the test equipment is where it's at, and as long as you can trust your test equipment, and we got slack coils up on the poles, and you got to kind of count how many you drive past. But as long as you trust your equipment and can do math, you can get pretty close. My boss, we had one. They shot the fiber. It fed a whole cabinet with. We had probably 100 people down on a Sunday.
Oh, boy.
10:30 in the morning. Never fails. When I'm on call, that happens. And I drove out there and got some measurements on it. I think it was like 10,600 foot from where I was at was where that damage was at. And my boss, I was talking to him and told him, and he said, it'll be between these 2 poles. Like, he pulled it up on Google Earth and our mapping. And he's like, I'm confident it's going to be between them. And he was 60 feet off.
So how do you know? Like, does it like? How does it? How can you tell it's that far?
So like our meters, they're power meters, and I call them OTDRs, optical time domain reflectance meters.
Hmm.
And it does measurements in milliseconds and how it picks that up where the open is. Um, the meter I use it's kind of a cheaper one, whereas my partner, he's got one, and you can take a fiber and bend it, and he can see that on his meter. And
That's
that's how
crazy.
we'll run trouble a lot of times. You'll get to the pole you think it's close to, and pull down a case and pull them fibers out and just put them, a micro bend on it, look for it on that meter and see if you can see that dip on the meter or that rise on that meter. And, hey, I'm here, or you're 200 feet away or 1,000 foot away or whatever. And, go to the next spot. But my boss, he was a fiber tech for probably 13, 14 years before he went into like more of the management side. He still does a lot of our engineering type stuff and does all that coordination stuff. But I mean, he's good, and He'll go out on outages with me and help me. I mean, probably in the last year we've probably been out probably half a dozen times together, and that's an office guy, and he's putting his boots on and going to work. That one we had a couple Sundays ago, he was up in the bucket doing a lot of the work up in the bucket. Like, it's pretty rare to see a boss that's willing to go get their feet dirty.
So are you strictly bucket then, or you ever climb ladders, or what?
Yeah, we do buckets and ladders. Thankfully, we don't have to climb anything on hooks. And most of the time, anyway, when you strap that fiber out over the strand, like, you're not going to get out there on a hook anyway. You're going to need a ladder. And, honestly, a lot of our stuff's so high anyway, you got to get to it with a bucket truck. You're going to have a 36-foot ladder if you're trying to get some of that stuff down.
So you just don't use the hooks and the ladder just because of the weight and the stress on the line, then.
No, you can throw the ladder up there if you can reach it. Throw it over the strand, but a lot of our stuff's over
that that'd
28
be
foot
rough.
high.
Yeah, that'd suck. So yeah, I see a bunch of your pictures and your posts and stuff. You're in the bucket or there's a bucket truck going, so that's cool. Um, that's
We work
awesome.
hand
So
in hand too. A lot of times with those outages with the line crews, the line crews, they might be out for 4 or 5 poles down, fibers down. Well, we got to wait for them to get done before we can even go to work. So, you might be waiting on them a couple of hours before you can even, really start fixing your damage. You can start assessing it and getting a game plan of, hey, I've got a 144 fiber torn in half. We're going to need it ran 6 poles, whatever it might be. I think one of them photos I showed you it was in them storms we had a few weeks ago, and you're not going to convince me it wasn't a tornado that went through there because our fiber was tore. I mean, it was ripped, cut like somebody took a pair of shears and cut it in half in like 4 or 5 different spots.
that's crazy.
Um, just sheared clean in half, and I mean that stuff. You take even a good pair of Klein cutters. I mean, you got to bear down to cut it, and it sliced it just like a razor blade, and that's the bad part. We're so small. We've got 3 guys that can kind of do this work too, if you count me, because I can barely wipe my butt to what them guys can do. But we got to sleep too. And when we found that 24 fiber blown in two like that, it was 11 o'clock at night. We'd worked 16 hours at that point, and our boss, he looked and he said, we've got 3 or 4 or 5 people down. He's like, I'm gonna need you guys tomorrow. Go home and sleep. So me and my partner went home and slept. By the time we got home, we slept 6 hours or so, and then we were back at it and worked another full day.
So and something like that, how far back do you have to cut it out? Do you cut back to a slack loop and then tie back in, or
If you get lucky and a couple poles back, you got some slack. You can maybe push the 2 pieces of slack together and splice it back together. Something like that. That's where we're taking a real trailer and some fiber down there, and we're hanging it and resplicing it. And thankfully, we all 3 work together pretty well because my boss is out there that day too. And, one guy can be hanging it, and maybe the other guy needs help. And I was in the trailer splicing it back together while they were getting the fiber pulled to the other end. And by the time I had my end spliced together, they were ready at the other end, and we pulled the trailer down there and spliced that back together too. And
yeah, I always wonder why I see all the loops. I was like, what are these loops for? I guess that
and
makes
you got to
sense.
figure
So
too, like most of them hanging up on the pole, like we got to be able to get them down and get them inside our splice trailer to work on them too. So
yeah,
a lot of times you'll see 7,500-foot coils just so we can get it down and get it in the trailer and work on it. And we've gotten smart too. They'll put slack spans every so many spans. That way we do have a car wreck, tree through the line, tornado, whatever. Maybe you get lucky and can push some of that slack, and you don't have to rerun fiber. It never seems to work that way though. Never.
no, you always play it and hope, and it just never goes that way. So that makes a lot of sense now. So I've always seen the loops, and I guess that makes sense because I've always seen the fiber trucks out, and the guys are working in trailers. I'm like, how are they working in the trailers? But then the cable's down, so that makes sense now. So you just lower the cable down, bring it in the trailer. That way, you're in a clean, dry environment. You can, take care of the
That's the
heat.
big thing.
It can be.
You want a controlled environment. A lot of guys
Mhm.
hard time like, oh, you guys can't work out in the cold. You can't work out in the heat. Like, no, we splice out in the field on a table. Like, we'll do it if we have to, but getting it in that trailer, we can kind of control that environment. The lighting's better, obviously, if it's nighttime. Thankfully they've came a long way with battery powered tools, but Milwaukee light's not as good as that LED light inside my trailer.
No, I got tons of LED lights from our friend in here in this little room, and there's no shadows whatsoever. So LED lights are definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
that
working that
makes
off a table, like you just can't get good lighting, no matter what you try. Like we've tried them all. Like you're always gonna have shadows, and when you're
mhm.
working with something the size of your hair, like shadow, like you're sitting there trying to reach for it, and you ain't gonna find it.
I fully get it now. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad to have you on. I mean, I kind of know what it is, but I really don't understand it. I mean, but you explain, the loops, the drops, and that kind of stuff. It makes
Mhm.
sense. So now I have a whole new respect for the fiber guys. I mean, it's definitely a trade. It's definitely a skill. I don't think I'd have the patience or the uh, right equipment to work on with my fat fingers. So
Yeah, you can't have shaky hands and do it. That makes
yeah.
that job terrible. But I would have if you'd told me 20 years ago I was going to be splicing fiber for a power company doing home internet, I'd have never believed you. No way a power company is going to be doing fiber internet to the house. No way. But I mean, here we are, 2023, and we're doing it. So
Yeah, we've got a few guys in the chat. EC2Fix says he appreciates your work, and then of course your stepson's in here, Colin. He says he needs to come in here and watch these more often. Yeah, you do, Colin. Come on in and support me. I try getting Chad in here all the time, and he said he comes in occasionally and he feels so lost and confused what we're talking about, and he leaves.
yeah, but that's just it. It's understanding other trades. Like
Yeah.
I mean, until I met you, like I never knew like that was a trade. Like I never knew like, oh, there's actually a trade for that.
Yeah, that's kind of why I started all this. I mean, I say it all the time is like, I go on Instagram and I start following these guys, these huge accounts, and they're doing HVAC and some refrigeration and plumbers, electricians. I'm like, man, there's no one doing what I do. I was like, and I do all this stuff in one job. So I kind of like started out of like greed, and it's kind of like morphed into more, and just kind of like want to share to the world what I do. And like, I want to promote what I do, but I want to promote all the trades, have people like you on, electricians on, get it out there, man. It's so crazy to think the trades are in such high demand.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, when I was in school, and I don't know if it was the same for you, but it was, if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. Like, you're not going to have the nice cars, the nice house. Like, you got to go to school and get this 4-year piece of paper to be anything in life. And, like I knew plenty of guys that had those 4 years piece of paper, and they came to a skilled trades job because of the money, because of the benefits, the retirement, not being tethered to a desk every day. Like, I couldn't imagine how horrible that'd be. Have to sit in an office every day. Like, no way.
So when I went to high school, I took 2 years vocational electrical, and I came out and I didn't have an electrical job, but I worked some factory jobs, and I couldn't even do that. I mean, just the repetitive nature of the same thing over and over, and that's kind of what ended my electrical career too. And I couldn't be trapped doing the same thing over and over. I mean, I do service work, so I see a lot of the same equipment over and over, but it's always something different. It's different environment, different circumstances. So it works out pretty well. And I'm sure yours is the same thing. I mean, yeah, you're fixing a lot of splices, but you're rolling up to a car wreck and the pole's down, or a storm took a pole down, or something.
Yeah, and I've said it before. Like it sounds silly, but it's kind of a sense of pride.
Dude.
9, 10 o'clock at night, and like nobody's out. After a storm, and all you see is electrical workers just zipping around to the next outage, and working under the cover of darkness. Like most people don't understand that. They turn the light on and they have power. And they click on Facebook and they have Facebook. Like, they don't understand the work that goes behind the scenes to get that light switch to work, or that mouse click to click.
Yep, they just see the end result and they just take it for granted. I mean, there's plenty of people like you and other guys out here making the world go around. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even just us. Like, we'll be out after an outage, and you've got the gas company, you've got the water company, and a lot of, well, why are they out? Well, they've got to do emergency locates for us. If we got to change a pole out in the ground, we got to have locates done, and them guys are zipping around too, spraying paint on the ground and letting us know where them utilities are at. And it really takes all the trades to kind of make that happen.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. I never would have thought, when I went to school, they did the same thing. College, or you're nothing. You got to go to college. You want to be the first person in your family to go to college and graduate. I mean, dude, I barely made it through high school. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there. It drove me nuts. And, the trades saved me. I mean, it's been a blessing, that I get to do all different kinds of cool stuff. And now, I've really made my mark in what I'm doing now between training and, fixing stuff and trying to develop other things. It's really cool, but I never would have thought I'd make the money I make now.
Same.
If I was to tell people how much I make, people would probably shit themselves. I mean, I do a lot more than the average tech does, though. I mean, most guys would stop, at 8, 9 hours a day. I'm going to do 10, 12 hours a day to make sure my customers get taken care of and to make sure, my office is taken care of. But, some guys just don't take pride in their work. They come, they do their 8, 9 hours and they go home. They don't care,
They do the bare minimum that it takes to keep the boss off their back. And I mean, that's it.
Yeah. I always tell, good.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I always tell everybody, everyone's like, how do you do such a good job? I'm like, it's because of 2 things. Like, have some pride in your work and have some integrity. Just do the right thing. Those 2 things, and you'll excel at anything in life.
Yeah, that's what I always told every guy we hired. I said, you know, like I take a lot of pride in every job I do. I wouldn't have a problem taking any photos and sending it to our CEO or posting it
Hmm.
on our social media page. And
Hmm.
that's where you need to be at. If you look at something and you say, "Man, I don't want somebody to see this," then you need to fix it. Like, don't
Hmm.
leave that. Don't let the next guy find it, or worst case, don't let somebody see that, or a neighbor or a family member, and you know, oh, if that's the type of work they do, I don't want them in my house. Like, no, don't be that guy. You seen that photo I sent you where, where we put our box inside that. It was actually in an ambulance building, and the scattered mess around it. And I
Yep.
mean that's typical. You walk into an IT room and it's organized chaos, but it's wires running everywhere, twisted around, and you look in any of our cabinets, like everything's labeled, everything's nice and neat. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, it looks like if that company was going to make a pamphlet to showcase their products, like, that's what ours would look like. And I mean, that's what it should be, but sadly, it's not.
No, it's like that everywhere. I mean, just take a little pride, and it goes a long way, man. I don't get it. I mean, I when I first started, I didn't think of things the way I did now, and I try to get others to think the same way I do. Just have a little pride and just do the right thing. I mean,
Mhm.
I used to be just do my job and go home, and then I realized that I was getting passed up for opportunities. I wasn't getting to do that cool stuff that other guys were getting to do, and that's when I started to realize, like, hey, maybe it is more than just doing my 8 and skating. Maybe it is more than, hey, they need someone to do this night job. I'll volunteer to do this. And it just kind of snowballed into a lot of other things, a lot of other opportunities. And I mean, once you become valuable to your company, I mean, they'll take care of you. I mean, they can
I
hire a lot of
100%
guys
believe
to just
that.
come in and do 8 hours and go home.
Well, and that's I think was a big part in the promotion that I got because all the other guys had applied for it. But anytime like we had cable damage, it was, hey, I'll come in. Like, hey, I'll stay late. Like, oh, I'll
Hmm.
come help you. And the point that last year, like you add up those other three guys overtime, multiply it by two, and I still had more overtime than all three of them. And it's just, and they wonder why. Like, why didn't I get the promotion? And it's, you're not doing that extra effort. Our shift starts
Hmm.
at 7:30. I'm in the office 7:15 every morning. Those guys, they roll in 7:25, 7:30 every morning, and it's just like, I get their argument. Oh, I don't start getting paid till 7:30. Well, that's a guy that doesn't appreciate and doesn't enjoy his job. If you enjoy your
Yeah.
job, like you're going to be there early, you're going to stay late. You're not. Yeah, I mean, there's nights it sucks. I got plans, and I don't want to be putting a fiber back together. But hey, that's what I signed up for.
Yep. Yeah. And it goes a long ways if your boss understands, and, it's a two-way street. I've been fortunate enough where I get to do some things with my kids. And when I was younger, I didn't I always took my work over my family, and that was on me. That really wasn't my work. I just never said no. And then
Mhm.
eventually I realized that, hey, I need to be here for my kids. I need to do this. And when I started explaining myself to my employer, it went a long ways. um,
Yeah, same with me. I try not to miss anything with Calvin. I mean, yeah, there's
mhm,
baseball games I've missed. Like, there's
mhm,
stuff I've missed, but
yeah.
thankfully, like he understands. That to be able to afford the lifestyle that we live, like sometimes there is some sacrifices that have to be
Mhm.
made. Like the baseball game, I might have to miss, or showing up late to it. But
Yeah. When you're on call,
yeah,
you got to do what you got to do. It's just part of the
yeah,
job. I mean, and if I'm not on call, I make sure I don't miss anything. If I'm on call, I try to work around it. And we've made a big push since we've been acquired that they want to make sure that we have a work-life balance. And if you need to do something for your family, it comes first. So there's been times where I've been on call, and my oldest son played football, was a star athlete, and um, I didn't miss any of his games in high school. I made a point that I was going to go to every last one of those high school games. He broke his leg his 8th grade year, and I wasn't there because I was at work. And he laid on the field for a half hour, and so I just made a point that I was never going to miss one of his games again to that point. And they worked with me, and I never told them the reason why I wanted to go to his games. They just thought it's because I wanted to see his games. Eventually, um, someone was taking off on Wednesdays to go play golf at like 2 o'clock every week, and I just made a comment about it. And they were like, "Well, you used to go home every Friday at 5 o'clock, whether you were on call or not, to watch your son's football game." And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, you can't compare the two. They're like, what do you mean? And I told them, like, well, you never told us that. I was like, well, it never came to a point where I needed to tell you guys that.
yeah.
But I mean, most of these companies will work with you if you give them a legitimate excuse. I mean, it, and guys get mad because I need to be off this time and they don't want to justify it. They don't want to explain it. But yet, if you take the time to justify and explain it to my boss, they're never going to argue with you. They'll let you have it.
Yeah, and I mean, we had some guys that I don't want to miss my kid growing up. Like, I get it, but like you work for a utility company. Like, you're
Hmm.
gonna be some stuff you're just gonna miss in life, and it sucks. But make the moment when you're there count. Like,
Hmm.
make it matter. Like, don't use the excuse of, oh, my kid, my kid, my kid, when it's not really your kid. Like, use that excuse, like you said, for that Friday night football game that you got to go to or whatever. Don't Monday through Friday, like, oh, I got to get off because of my kid. I got to get off because of my
No.
kid, and then
Well,
I'm not
and
gonna
what I
fault somebody for wanting to be a parent. I'm not gonna do that, but maybe this trade isn't one for you. You
well,
know.
I made the effort though too. I was like, hey, I'm gonna be off early on Friday. I'll come in extra early. If you can get me a job at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, I'll be there 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm not trying to leave you guys high and dry. I'm not trying to leave my customers high and dry. I'll make sure I do my fair share of the day. I just, I had to be home, and it worked out. I did that for 4 years. It was probably a total of like 50, 55, Friday nights I came home. But um, I mean, they understand and they work with me. It's just a lot of guys just expect people to give it to them, but they don't want to explain why. And I was guilty of that too. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you got to be able to work with them and take care of it. Your
Yeah, but
responsibilities.
when you're a bare minimum guy all week long, like,
Oh, it's an
I,
excuse.
I'm sorry, I don't have much sympathy for you.
No,
If you
no.
bust your butt Monday through Thursday, and like, hey, like, I got you guys, like, you got plans these nights, like, I'll stay late, and
Hmm.
thankfully we really do have a pretty good crew. Like, if I need
Hmm.
off call for something, one of the guys will usually one of the few guys will step up and do it. There's one or two they won't step up and help anybody, but I mean that's also why they didn't get a promotion either. So
So enough about fiber. I want to talk about your little side thing you got going on. Uh, so if you don't realize this guy works a million hours like me, but he also when he comes home, he's also doing other stuff too. So he has a CNC shop, and you're transitioning into some 3D printing stuff too. It looks like.
yeah, we have 5 3D printers. We actually have a laser machine too, but
Do you?
with the hours I work and all the other irons in the fire, like, I haven't had time to even begin to learn to use it. I bought it for a project I was really pumped up to do, and it ended up showing up like a week late. So it was just like, whatever. Like,
So
it's just
this,
sitting on the shelf.
I'm in my wife's room right now. I'm gonna turn the camera. Don't. So there's two
Yeah,
printers, and then on the very far end right, there's a laser. That's her laser. It's not. She hasn't ran the laser in a little bit, but this is her craft room. Don't knock me for the not finished walls.
and you
They're
see
coming.
the
Well, they're coming
painter's cloth
off.
behind me.
They're coming off the wall. The drywall's coming off, so I can spray foam behind it. I just put that up with batted insulation to get me through the winter in here, and I've been getting quotes for spray foam. So everyone's like, just pull a drywall off; it's worth it. So I'm gonna pull a drywall back off. That's why I haven't finished it. But
No, the CNC thing actually started out. So I was at the phone company. We were union, so every 3 or 4 years we had contract negotiations, and it was
mhm.
it was always one of them things. I always told people, you got about a solid year and a half, like, where you could live life. If you wanted to blow money on something stupid, you could, but then it was saving up for like an impending strike or
Mhm.
being off work. So I was like, man, I'm just gonna get me a CNC machine, and that way, if we go on strike, I'll sit and make money at my shop. And yeah, it was if you seen my post a couple weeks last week or whatever, it was a struggle for a while,
Mhm.
and I thought I was gonna buy that thing and be printing money, and that was a real humbling experience. Getting that machine, getting it all set up. Thanks for Paul. Paul came over and wired it up, and got it all set up for me, and then I ended up getting the flu, and it's like a week or so before I got over here. And I got over here and I set that first program to run. I was, all pumped up, and that router took
Mhm.
off to a completely different spot on the table, drove down and broke the bit. And I thought, what in the world have I done? I've spent, 20 grand on something that I'm clearly not smart enough to even run. And,
Uh,
just kept grinding along with it, just kept working at it, not giving up, and it blossomed into kind of the headache that it is now.
yeah, but it's pretty cool. I mean, you do a lot of different things. I mean, you're involved in the audio community, but you do some other stuff outside of that too. So it's pretty cool to see some of the stuff you make. I wouldn't mind having a small, like a 4x4, like a tabletop unit. Um,
Yeah, I actually got before I got my big one. I actually bought an X carve, an Inventables X carve.
mhm.
And I thought, yeah, it'd be cool. It'll do what I want, and I got it all set up, and I ran it for a couple hours, and I'm like, man, this thing. No, I need the big boy, and like I need the big one. I need to be able to throw a 4x8 sheet of wood up on there and go to town on it. And I actually pretty much gave that to a buddy. Like he's had it for 4 or 5 years probably now. Like it was one of the things that was going to sit on the shelf. I wasn't going to use it. Like he had a little bit of a medical condition where he couldn't work, and hey, like, take this home, make some money with it. Like,
Oh, I know who it
and that
is.
and that's the thing. Like there's so much to do with that. Like the competitiveness. Like I don't care. Like
Yeah.
somebody wants to go this guy. I don't care. Like I've got enough work on my table. Like I don't care. Like everybody can eat at the table. And yeah, it's got me into some cool projects. RP always has the crazy stuff, and who would have thought when I bought the machine 5 or 6 years ago that I would have cut baffles for the loudest vehicle in the world? Like I would have never believed that.
That's cool. Yeah, Colin says you're doing his wall build too, so I need to come down to the shop. I need to come and check it out.
Yeah, come out and hang out for a day, and
I may have to come down this weekend if you're going to be around. Are you on call or are you free? Or
well, with the storms, I'm not on
uh,
call this weekend, but with the
but
storm, it depends on what tomorrow entails. If
I
I'll be
haven't
working
seen the
Saturday.
weather. I'm scared to look at it. Luckily, I'm not outside tomorrow. I got a couple inside jobs, so I'm not too bad. If I
And I
lose
think our
power where I'm
boss
at,
is tried to take care of us tomorrow and get us some inside stuff to just try to keep us busy, but keep us available. So if,
hmm
the weather does turn south, like we're not on anything that we can't break off and go fix outages. And I mean
that's
that's kind
cool.
of like a day like tomorrow when they're forecasting bad weather. I mean it's kind of a hey, like be prepared for a long day. Like you just never know what it'll entail. We might get lucky and might not have nothing, and we might end up working 18, 20 hours.
Yeah,
Hard to
definitely you come
say.
down and you check out the farm too.
Yeah.
I've been getting the itch to turkey hunt, so I want to go down there and see if there's any turkey down there.
Yeah, Dad he just had a big excavator and a big dozer out there and cleared off like all the brush right up by the road. Like I went by there a couple weeks ago, and it's hard to believe it's the same place. Uh,
Nice.
he he was a heavy machinery mechanic all his life, and he got one of his local one of the local TCI, their big contracting company, do stripping like big mass excavation stuff. Well, he went to high school with that guy that owns that. When my dad retired from Caterpillar, he recruited him. Hey, come work for me. And Dad did that for a couple of years and then retired. And he'll go back time to time and work. Well, it messed up his Social Security one year, so he was like,
Uh-oh.
"Yeah, no." So he had called him like, "Hey, I've got this dozer transmission I need gone through. Like, you come back and work." And Dad's like, "Yeah, I'll come back, but let's just barter system. Like, I need the farm cleaned up, and you need the transmission rebuilt. So you keep track of my hours, and when I got enough money saved up in hours, you send the guys out there to go clean the farm up." So they're out there for a
Nice.
couple of weeks getting it cleaned up, and it's good for him. That farm was his dad's farm, so
Nice.
seeing it cleaned up's been nice for him. Yeah, you
Sweet.
definitely need to come down and check it out.
All right. Well, I won't keep you much longer. It's been 52 minutes. We're getting up there. So it's been great
Yeah,
talking to you. Always enjoy talking to you. You always have a pretty good outlook on everything. You're always positive. You're always taking pride in your stuff. So I always look up to you, man.
that's the same for you, man. Finding people that actually take pride in what they do anymore, that's kind of a rarity in today's age.
Oh man, it goes such a long way, man. I tell my kids, take pride in what you do. I don't care what you do, just take pride and you'll be successful. I mean, if you're a janitor cleaning toilets, you take pride in it, you're going to be successful. I mean, whatever it
Yeah,
is,
that's
just
one thing my dad told me when I was young. I played basketball when I was younger, and he didn't make it a lot of practices either. He worked all the time, and he showed up to a practice, and "Hey, how was I doing, Dad?" And he's like, "Well, you weren't the best on the floor." He's like, "But that's okay. You can be the hardest working on the floor." And he's like, "That applies in all aspects in life." He said, "They'll remember two people, the best and the one that worked the hardest." He said, "You don't have to be the best in life. You just got to work harder than everybody else." And I mean, I never knew that at 10, 11 years old that would transpire what it does today. But I mean, he's right. You don't have to be the best at what you do. You just got to work harder than everybody else.
dude, we're going to leave it on that because that's pure gold right there. So, um, you're not big on social media, if people want to check out your CNC stuff, that's gethouseofpower.com. Is that it?
Yep. Yep. That's the
Um,
website.
so he does
The Facebook,
CNC.
there's Facebook page too, House of Power.
He does some pretty cool stuff on there. All different kinds of stuff. So I'll be hitting him up trying to figure out how to design some stuff on a 3D printer too. I need some lessons. So
Me and you both, buddy.
well, have a good night. Just